The My Second Home program is a real popular residency by investment program that you can actually participate in Malaysia. And it's also called the MM2H program, which basically stands for My Second Home program. And if you ever want to visit Singapore for many days at a time for a real cheap price, my advice is to stay right across the border or right across the bridge from Singapore in what's called Johor Bahru, which is in Malaysia, where hotel rooms are about a quarter of the price of what you're going to see in Singapore, and food prices in Malaysia extremely cheap also. You can stay in Malaysia on this type of visa as long as you want, and you can come and go on a multiple entry visa as many times as you desire. The visa can actually be renewed after a 10-year period is over, and every 10 years thereafter if you want to continue staying in Malaysia. The health costs and benefits in Malaysia are really inexpensive, and they do have good health benefits. A foreigner can buy any number of properties in Malaysia subject to the minimum of 500,000 ringgit, or about 113,706 US dollars, or whatever the minimum is in the state that you buy the property in. One warning is I look back on the currency chart on the ringgit dating back to 1992, and the ringgit has a long-term constantly track record of dropping against the US dollar. And so you really have to take this in consideration, because that can diminish your money depending on where you've got it placed. But you can apply for up to one maid subject to approval of the Immigration Department if you become a part of the My Second Home program. You would be able to bring in your children that are under 21 years old, that are not married. Offshore pension funds that are transferred into Malaysia are tax exempt. You can have your own business also while living in Malaysia. If you're over 50 years old, you can work part-time with certain restrictions. You can bring in household items duty-free. Interest in bank accounts are actually tax exempt. Your parents can join you actually under what's called a 6-month renewable visa. Requirements to qualify for the program is you have to have in liquid assets of at least 350,000 ringgits total. If you're under 50 years of age, a monthly income also of 10,000 ringgits a month, and a fixed deposit of 150,000 ringgits. If you're over 50 years of age, you would have to have in liquid assets 500,000 ringgits, have a monthly income of 10,000 ringgits a month, and have a fixed deposit of 300,000 ringgits. If you're under 50 years of age, you would have to deposit 300,000 ringgits, and after 1 year, 150,000 ringgits could be withdrawn. The other 150,000 ringgits would have to stay deposited as long as you want to keep your residency in Malaysia. If you're over 50 years of age, you would have to keep in a fixed deposit bank account at least 150,000 ringgits for the first year. After 1 year, you could withdraw up to 50,000 ringgits, and you would have to maintain at least 100,000 ringgits under this program for the remainder of your stay in Malaysia under this type of program. These fixed deposits have to be maintained in Malaysian ringgit currency only. You can't have this in the US dollar, and this is one disadvantage because the ringgit has constantly dropped against the US dollar, so you have to take this in consideration. Any fixed deposit has to have approval from the Malaysian Tourism Department for the money to be withdrawn. The fixed deposit can be withdrawn anytime that you want, terminating the My Second Home program, but again, approval from the Ministry of Tourism has to be gotten in advance to get this done. Once your application is approved, your entire family that wants the residency must undergo a medical exam in Malaysia at any private hospital or medical clinic. You also have to have a medical insurance policy, which is applicable in Malaysia for the ones that want the residency. If you're over 59 years old, this requirement is actually waived. All right, I'm going to give you my evaluation of the program, the My Second Home program, and it's going to involve the basically advantages and disadvantages of the program. Malaysia does have a great territorial tax system like the country of Panama does, but more people that speak fluent English in Malaysia than they do in Panama. And you've got also the same kind of tropical weather in Malaysia that you do also in Panama. The crime and petty theft and murder are a lot less in Malaysia than they are in Panama, I will say that. The healthcare and education system is quite good. If you want to be just a few minutes from Singapore but paying a lot less than Singapore prices, you can live in Johor Bahru, Malaysia, which connects to Singapore by a bridge, and you can literally, be there in a few minutes. In fact, there are a lot of people that actually work in Singapore but live in Johor Bahru, Malaysia. I mean, it's that close because the cost of food and living, in Malaysia is just so cheap. The weather is really nice too. If you like tropical weather all year round, you can literally swim all year round in Malaysia. That's how nice the weather is. Okay, one disadvantage is if you're from the USA or Europe, it's a long ways, especially if you got grown children that don't live with you in Malaysia. So if you're living in let's say, England, or you're living in USA or someplace in Western Europe, you're going to find out it's a long ways to go. It's a lot closer countries, maybe in the Central America, or actually in the Caribbean, that you can actually live in. And if you got heirlooms, furniture, and stuff like this, it's a fortune to get that stuff shipped. So, you either have to give it up or you got to just suck it up and pay a tremendous amount in shipping costs. And I'll tell you something else too. It can actually, I mentioned this before, it can save your marriage by being close to your children, because a lot of times, if you're not close to your children, there can be conflicts in the relationship and stuff with one spouse or the other. And it's just not worth it. You're better off being close, I think, to your children, unless all of you have made a conscious decision, that's okay. So this is something you really have to take in consideration, because I see a lot of people have problems in families because they move so far away. The family splits up. They hardly ever see their kids. This is something you really have to think about. The Caribbean and Central America, like I say, is a lot closer, and they got real good tax laws there too in the Caribbean, which makes it real nice too. And English is widely spoken in the Caribbean, whereas in Malaysia it is better than Panama, but you have a rough time actually even there. I've been to Malaysia many times and I've experienced that. The Caribbean and Central America have similar programs where English is the main language and the U.S. dollar currency that is tied to the U.S. dollar is a currency. This is one thing I really like about the Caribbean and Central America. A lot of their currencies are tied to the U.S. dollar, and or either that or they're actually in the U.S. dollar. Like Panama uses the U.S. dollar, Ecuador uses the U.S. dollar. A lot of the Caribbean countries use the EC dollar, which is tied to the U.S. dollar. So you have crashes like we're having right now in this coronavirus. I've seen so many of these currencies just plummet. And this is a thing you really take in consideration, because when you're doing investing, and not only the investment goes down, but the currency goes down, you can get really get whammed pretty bad. And the currency of the ringgit, which is the Malaysian currency, has constantly dropped since 1992. In fact, I went back to a chart as far back as 1992. I mean, I could have searched maybe back 40, 50 years. But that currency has been beat up constantly against the U.S. dollar, is constantly falling. Now, whether that will turn around and for what period, it might do it for a short period, but for long periods, there is no track record showing that. So that's something you really have to take in consideration. The Malaysian passport is a good passport, but I want to talk to you a couple of things on the passport program. The passport, if you're planning on getting residency in Malaysia for getting citizenship later, I don't think that's a good choice. And I'll tell you why. It's going to take you 12 years to reside in Malaysia to give you the ability to apply. Doesn't mean you're going to get the citizenship. And I can tell you in 12 years, you won't get the citizenship and passport. It could take you 20 or 25 years. I know people have been there for years and years and years. They've tried and still not gotten it. But don't feel bad if you don't get it, because I don't think that's a good choice anyway, because although it does have very good visa-free travel, Malaysia doesn't allow dual citizenship, and you also have to be fluent in Malay just to apply for the passport and to get it. So, these are things, this is why so many people don't get the passport, is because they have to learn the Malay language. And, is it worth giving up your second passport? I would say no. Any country that makes you give up your passport to take theirs, that's telling me that the government's telling you they want control over you. I wouldn't go that option. And if you want a good residency and not going to lead up to citizenship, and you know that, that's fine. But one thing you need to take in consideration, if you're going to reside in a place for a long time, why not pick a place you can get second citizenship and they allow dual citizenship? That way you're utilizing your time better. Because Malaysia, you're just wasting time if that's your purpose. So I mean, these are things that you really need to think about. Anyway, if you want to learn more on these matters, visit our website at www.citizenshipquickly.com. And we deal with 67 citizenship by investment and residency by investment countries I think you'll be interested in. Also, if you're interested in getting your taxes to zero, close to zero, we have unique ways you won't see anywhere else. We've been in this for many, many years helping people. We started onshore and then started doing it offshore. Offshore's got a lot more leverage to it. So these are things you need to look at. If you go to our website, www.citizenshipquickly.com, go to the top bar, you'll see the part that says questions. Hit that tab and then go in there, answer the questions. Hit next, send it back to us. We'll get back with you and try to help you in getting your problem solved. Also, if you got a question or comment, hit the comment section below. And if you like new videos as they come out, hit the subscribe button to the right of the screen. We'll get the new videos out to you as soon as they come out. Look forward to talking to you on the next video. Take care.